I am curious about your thoughts on it is a pretty big change in this franchise
Hmm.
where you suddenly do have one less party member
Yeah.
and it seems like you can't directly control the other party members other than giving them commands like in Mass Effect. And I don't remember if it was Micah or Shay. I feel like it was Shay who says that they had preferred the Mass Effect mechanics of combat.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So are you liking this more than
Yeah,
Shay?
yeah. Because the context there is that my memories of Dragon Age are way more because I'm re-editing or re-reviewing my first run and cutting it down.
Mm-hmm.
I can see a lot of the lag, and I'm like, it was 8 years ago, but I'm like, man, I feel sorry for the people who sat through some of this, right? It's not that it was like the gamer's fault because we can just cut through things, right? If we want to produce it more fast paced, we can. But the thing
Right.
is, like, the reality is the experience was like my memories were like the experience was actually longer than what the audience saw, right? Because like I cut those combat pieces down because they were boring, right? Or I was getting
Hmm.
frustrated, and that's not fun. And so while I was reviewing this, it hit me that I never had that feeling with Mass Effect. And then I was like, why? Like,
Mm.
why didn't that happen?
Mm.
Well, because
Yeah.
every fight in Mass Effect was a cinematic in my head, in my memory. And it
Mm. Mm-hmm.
mapped to the reality of like if I go back and see those runs, or like I've seen your run, Hark, and I've seen other people's, right? Like things are always moving and the story is always
Hmm.
being told and the characters are always interacting. And it feels like you're sharing a bond with these characters inside the narrative that again, I think our memories of Dragon Age are way different than the experience, when you hit those like sloggy moments. So in my head, I was like,
Yeah.
man, it wouldn't be great if this was like more narrative driven instead of you're in a really rich story, rich character development, one of the pioneers of even and topic to bring up here because I'm curious on your thoughts here. Like this is the grandfather of like queer gaming. Like this is like this game was the first, not the first one, you know what I mean, but like it was the one that set the precedent for like it being done right. And
Yeah.
that
Mm.
this game was one of the first games to set that right. That was
Mm.
2009, folks. Like this isn't like
Mm-hmm.
that's another narrative going out there, right? And it's not fair because this was
No.
already around for like I don't know 8-10 years before the
Oh
narrative like
yeah.
started taking over a lot of the discourse online, right? And where
Mm-hmm.
it
Yeah.
became polarized. There was nothing polarized for the first 8 years of Dragon Age. This was just a game,
No.
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
Yeah.
brought a lot of that diversity and thought, and the community behind this game is far more than the game. This is also something that I think
That's
is in the
true.
conversation, right? Because you go online and you follow the people
Yeah.
who love Dragon Age. That feels completely different than what people are talking about when they're talking about the game, right? So
Yeah.
who are there to
That's
play the game,
true.
not
Yeah.
exist with the
Yeah.
game, right? And the community of the game.
That's a
So
good point.
there's a
Very
couple points
true.
dropped there. Take the baton, any one of you. I'm happy to hear. Like I'm curious to hear your thoughts on any of that. Yeah.
Micah, go ahead.
Okay, what I will thank you, Hark, by the way. What I will say when you talk about queer gaming, like this is the reason why I actually started playing Dragon Age. It was because of
Mm-hmm.
Hark. Like, so everyone who's
Oh,
watching, this is
I
how
feel
I
the same way.
discovered this
that's sweet.
franchise was through Hark.
That's,
I'm not
that's
even
sweet.
joking because the first 10 years of my marriage, I had no video game consoles because I was just too engrossed with work. And my wife would watch YouTube videos where she watched like couples doing pranks. And one of the couples she watched was an LGBT couple. And I sometimes would watch Let's Plays when I had downtime. One day I saw a picture of Andromeda Ryder kissing Reyes. And that was the first time I've ever, and mind you, I am 40 years old. And I was in my early 30s when I saw that, and I had never seen that in a video game before. So I was like, wait, boys kissing? Let me scoot up a chair. And then I said, fine, okay, I like this game. It seems interesting. So, know what I typed in? I said, gay let's play. Literally, you can do this today.
That's
I typed
trademark
in gay let's
indoors.
play, Dragon
Wow.
Age, gay let's play,
Wow.
not Baldur's Gate, Mass Effect and Dragon
Yeah.
Age. And Hart's channel popped up.
Yeah.
And then he was like,
Yeah.
hey, everybody, this is Angel Arts, on this channel. And I was just like, oh, subscribed. This is this is my cousin. So, like, real talk, Shay is so right. And then
Yeah.
I experienced the first two Dragon Ages through Hark's channel. And then later I got Inquisition when I saw the first few episodes of when you were playing as the Canary. And then it made me say, you know what?
Yes.
I need to get this game for myself.
Mm.
And when
Good.
I experienced it, again, guys, Shay is so right. They are the first company to really do queer gaming right, and not just that, it's the
Yeah.
storytelling behind
That's
it.
right.
So
The
yeah,
characters and the story, like
yeah,
everything's integrated. It's immersed inside that experience. It's not the
yeah.
narrative is completely twisted, or it's going to be getting. It's getting. I can see it
It's
now.
getting
It's
more
getting
twisted because
twisted,
people are
and it's
twisted.
just no. This is 15 years of these. These are pioneers we're talking about here. This isn't just
Yeah,
something that got tacked on, right? And yet,
yeah.
just to piggyback, so it was gay. Let's play Mass Effect. Was what got me to.
That's sweet.
So,
No, yeah, this is
I
all
was like,
Hart's
wait, you
fault.
can't do that
Oh
in
my
Mass Effect.
goodness.
He hacked the game. How did he do this? It's like,
Right?
Yeah.
yeah, a couple episodes
Yeah.
in, it's like, all right, let's see this thing. Let's see this play out.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was good. It was good. Not only was it fun watching the story, but yeah, that like going to you, Hart, giving you credit. You're an excellent storyteller, like, and how you got us engrossed in the characters. Like, I really felt like, yeah, I get it. I'm with Skylar Shepherd all the way. Let's go. And
Oh,
that was not Skylar, Clive, but I was sold, and then when I
sweet.
watched your Dragon Age Let's Play with Angelus, and the
Yeah.
story that was being told there, and it's just this company, like I always tell people, I'm still a newer fan because I didn't experience the first two games. I watched the first two games, but it's the third game that made me a real BioWare fan. And then I played Mass Effect and I fell in love with
Nice.
Shepard. Yeah.
Nice.
But going back to you, Hark, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
No, no, no. Like, you all talked a lot about a lot of stuff. So just to piggyback. First of all, thank you for half of what you both said. I had no idea. So thank you. That's really sweet that you shared that with me. Yeah, the queer romances in Dragon Age has a really interesting history because they started off where you had two options in Dragon Age Origins for both genders, but like one was a straight option, the other one was a male option for both male and female.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they went to Dragon Age 2 where you could romance everybody. And then, of course, there was a lot of that was like a very heated topic about should all of the characters really be romanced and all that good stuff. And then they adjusted a little bit in Inquisition where, okay, you can't romance everyone, but here's more romances.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the one person I wanted to romance as a male was Cullen, and I couldn't. So I was like really annoyed. Don't get me wrong, I love Dorian. Don't get me wrong.
Uh-huh.
But Cullen was like the one I wanted to romance since Origins.
Gotcha.
And so now we're coming into this game, and what I've read is that you can romance
Everybody.
any of the companions, like any of the 7
Mhm.
companions, regardless of what Rook you roll, whether you're male, female, whatever race.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, I think they kind of had to do because maybe this is influenced by Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know, but Baldur's Gate 3 did it exactly that way. And perhaps BioWare thought, all right, maybe we should shift back to that because now it's more universally accepted. I don't think there was that much, I could be wrong, but I didn't think there was that much backlog about how romances were done in Baldur's Gate 3 in terms of having everyone available no matter what race you were. So,
can I quickly touch on that point? Because I came across some info that, because I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3 yet, but I came across a tweet that talked about this like kind of a dynamic, and it got me thinking about like how do they pull it off, right? And it's as I understood the tweet, I haven't dug in deeper because I don't want to spoil myself, but it's that they're not like the characters aren't gay unless you go down the track that opens them up to being gay, whereas like you could be, you know what I mean, you could play straight and like for a straight relationship and you'll never get that layer to the character. It's not like every character is bisexual in the game or pansexual, right? Because I'm sure you can, I mean, that game goes wherever the hell you take it, and there's some excitement to that because from a design perspective, that might have set like how to do this so that we start correcting course here, because the narrative again is very skewed where like everything is like a trigger point now, right? If we get back to the center, look at Baldur's Gate 3, man. You don't think they went through the gauntlet the first, like before they launched, and then everyone loved it? Well, Can we
Yeah.
analyze, like, you gotta analyze that because like they nailed it.
Yeah.
And here's a bit of an, I don't know if irony is the right word here, right? But like Dragon Age Origins was the spiritual successor to Baldur's Gate 2, right? And now we're talking
That's
about
true.
Baldur's Gate
That's
3 comes out,
true.
and
Yes.
now all of a sudden Dragon Age 4 might be like
Yes.
the piggyback system here. That could be very
Piggybacking off of
beneficial.
Baldur's Gate 3 a little bit.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that.
Same. Yeah.
One thing I'm very curious about is,
Mhm.
in addition to the companions, are there other characters, the non-playable, or the non-party member, I should say,
Yeah.
non-party member characters that you could also romance, just like you were able to romance Cullen and Josephine
Mhm.
in Inquisition, or Gil, and Suvi, I think, in Andromeda.
Yeah.
Because part of me was wondering, I wasn't going to hold my breath, because I also agreed with you, Micah, when you mentioned that perhaps Varric was going to act as an advisor role in this game, just like Cullen and Leliana and Josephine.
Mhm.
And I was wondering, can Varric finally be romanced? Finally?
Look,
Like,
Bianca
if y'all
went down. Bianca went down, and
Right.
he's gonna need a Rook with a hook that's gonna get him back in.
Rook
Okay?
with a hook.
Rook with a hook that's gonna get him back in, honey. Look. I'm already planning. I'm just kidding.
If any of you all wants to preserve the Bianca like Varric relation, that's fine. Y'all
Yeah.
can reserve that. But for those of us who choose to romance Varric because it works for our story,
That part.
I would love to open that part.
That's the key, right? It's every player's story. So like,
Yes.
It's every
whatever
player's
you want.
story.
It should be
Yes.
fanfic for all of us, you know? Every version of any of these games. Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
That is
It
so
should be
perfect.
fanfic for all of us.
Yes.
Right. Because my fanfic should not interfere with your fanfic.
Exactly.
You know, it should not. Like,
oh my god.
It's sort of like in Mass Effect, and I know people who have watched my older videos are probably sick and tired of me saying this. I really, really did enjoy the Edie and Joker relationship. However, if I had the option to romance Joker as Shepard, I would have been on that like Seth Green sounding character, like a boss.
Look,
would have been
you
all
would have
over
broke
that.
some legs for a whole nother reason, but
Right.
okay.
And it would not, if I had done that, it should not interfere with another player's version where Edie and Joker did end up together.
Right.
So, anyway, I'm getting off that soapbox again because I know I've been on that soapbox so many times already.
No, but I agree with you, you know? And I like what you said, Shay. This is our way of having our own fanfic, and it's storytelling at its finest, because it said play how you want to play, be who you want to be, and they give you that freedom. And in Baldur's Gate, you know, from playing it myself, I don't want to spoil it for you, Shay, but I'll just say is there were there was moments where I really felt truly emotional at some of the things I was seeing, and I was like, wow. And I felt the same way in Inquisition, you know, when I saw some of the things that were taking place, when you realize you have to, you know, for those of you who haven't played Dragon Age 2 or Inquisition, what are you doing with your life? But when you have to leave Hawk in the Fade, you know what I mean? And it's like, because just think about it, you're leaving your child. It's like, because that's your Hawk. You created that person. So it's like, if I leave them in the Fade, it's like I'm leaving a bit of myself. You know what I'm saying? Because you have this attachment. It's the way you told your story. You know, I don't know. I so agree with you on that, my dude. And okay, so what I'm curious about now, you know, and again, sticking with the romance theme for just a second.
Let's switch topics here.
I was going to say, based on everyone you've seen from the announcement trailer, the reveal trailer of all the party members we know we can romance, who is like your number one person?
As a character or as a romance?
Either a character or a romance. It could be both.
My knee-jerk reaction answer is I always was super fascinated by the Mortalitasi. I think that their lore, every time I got a hint of anything from the Mortalitas, I just found it super fascinating, because they are, you know, essentially mages of death magic. And mages and magic in at least Ferelden especially is very taboo.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite so in Tevinter. And then and then I've always curious, like, what is the culture like in Navarra? And I doubt that the Mortalitasi are seen with the taboo that you may think when you think death magic mages, and what makes death mages like less fearful than blood mages. Like, I don't know. So I'm curious about that, which is why Emmerich, I think Emmerich is the character that I would love to learn more about. And I think the fact that he's got Manfred as his, I guess, assistant.
Yeah.
Hopefully this doesn't turn a lot of people off, and if so, I don't care. But I was kind of wondering, can I romance Manfred? If I romance Emmerich, can there be like an Emmerich Manfred like thing going on? I don't know. Especially if Manfred has like a British accent or something.
Oh my god!
And acts like a British butler. If Manfred spoke just like Tim Curry from Clue. As like a Tim Curry, the Tim Curry like butler from Clue, I'd be like,
could you imagine?
That's how my headcanon is right now about what Manfred
he's gonna be calling
like. But anyway,
her all the time. It's gonna be a problem.
But in terms of romances, I actually don't know. I think for the first time, normally I kind of have an idea after seeing all the companions who I think I may be most interested in romancing, and right now I really have zero clue. And I kind of hope that it stays that way until I actually play through the game and figure it out.
That's it.
Like, actually feel out who I feel drawn towards.
Okay.
How about you, Shay?
Oof. I got a weak spot for the crows. I always have since Dragon Age Origins. Zevran's probably one of my favorite. I ended up moving, but I'm kind of with you in that I let the character kind of reveal what makes sense. I never really called any of the relationships in any of the BioWare games, but I play characters that I've played for like 15, 20 years, so I've got a sense for where they would go. But I let the game sort of give me the lines or don't, and then we'll move on. But Zevran was a tough call for me, and then it was what was the other one? Like Jack in Mass Effect was also like I would never have thought. Ever. And my God, I'm not an emotional guy. There are a couple of moments between Jack and Shep where I was like, oh, God, I'm breaking a little bit.
That.
And it's just the way the scene plays out. And because, like we talked about, you have this immersive experience in that relationship as like it's like a conduit, an avatar to your thinking and your feelings are through Shepard in that dynamic. And so you start to feel what the character's feeling. And in those unexpected moments, much like life, right? We don't always predict what moments and what people are gonna touch us. So, that being said, weakness for the crows, I think it'd be the Lucanus. Am I getting the right?
Lucanus.
Lucanus, the mage killer. It makes me want to make a mage just so that he can slay me in the stack. So this is like this, like.
Look. You gonna work that hate out of him, okay? You just gonna work that hate out of him. That's all you're gonna do.
There's gonna be a redefinition of what his like subtitle is.
So basically, Shay's going for what is it? Reach and flexibility.
Reach
and flexibility. There you go.
Your flexibility and his reach. There it is.
And his reach. There you go.
Right.
There we go.
Gonna fall on a different kind of blade. All right.
Just saying,
reaching that veil, Veilguard.
He had the look for sure. Otherwise, I don't know. I don't know if there's any other character that drives me right now from just like a visual design perspective too. Maybe that's like talking to like on the surface level. Like there's nothing appealing to me about the characters as they're designed, except for Lucanus, but that's because I got that bias with crows, So I don't know. I really don't. I mean, Scout Harding, she was cute as hell. Like she always was in Dragon Age Inquisition. I thought she was a cute character. She was cute, And
she's very,
just her attitude and so that's probably a weakness too. So we'll see. Micah.
Me? Well, my thirst never ends, but for me, it's Knave. Knave.
I can see that.
And Davrin. Knave and
Davrin.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I can see that.
I'm sorry. When I saw that and I saw that Valisline and that dark brown skin, I said, I'm sold. And I get a fur baby with it. I get a fur baby with him. I don't even need a child now.
I don't know how many other people would agree with me, but I kind of want to revisit the rivalry system again. You
Ooh,
know, like the friendship versus rivalry versus romance system.
right.
But I want them to do it better than they did in
Thank
Dragon
you.
Age 2 because I wasn't really satisfied with how they did
No.
rivalry in Dragon Age 2 because
No.
I think you can be a rival without being mean spirited
Yeah.
with each other, if you know what I mean. Like
Oh, I
more a
do.
rival, more like I'm gonna give you a hard time, but in like
Yeah.
A loving
joking
way.
slash
Not like,
yeah, in like a
we're
loving
gonna
way.
fight to the death scene in the third act, and then you
Yeah.
lose one of my favorite characters.
Yeah,
Like that? No. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Fenrir for that kind of rivalry system, right? And it's like, oh, I didn't want that, like, at all. Like, I don't think I even played for that story,
yeah.
you know? Yeah.
I didn't want a rivalry to mean that you were like you hated each other.
Yeah.
That kind of was what it felt like.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so right now I'm currently doing a co-op let's play with on Wildermyth at the moment.
Okay.
And there is a rivalry system. There's a friendship slash rivalry slash slash romance, like that you could have relationship between characters, and I mean, it's definitely like not as deep of a game as Dragon Age, but I think that their rivalry system is the way that I would envision would want it to be in Dragon
An
Age.
anime
So
rivalry system, like a manga, like, you know what I'm saying when I say that? Like, is it more like you're like your frenemies? It's
Yeah.
like,
yeah, kind
Yeah,
of.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think like frenemies is a good way to put it. So I don't know. I don't know if that's something they'll bring back, but I think
like
it'd be really interesting.
yeah.
You know. Mhm.
Well, that would be fun. I think that would be fun being like, could you imagine that way? Like, let's just use Lucanus right now because he's fresh in our memories. Just imagine
Yes.
you're playing as a mage. He's already mad at you for just being a mage.
That's true. For
right?
being a mage.
And then it's like you're arguing about magic, and he's, and then it's like all of a sudden there's a scene that happens that's like, oh my god, now your rival is now your new boo thing. I support this.
People are gonna make mages just to try and to do a romance, just to see what that plot
Right?
is. It's an
like,
awesome
like
story.
that would be.
That's why, as a mage, I wanted to romance Cullen in Dragon Age Origins.
Dynamic, right? There
So
Hark,
that's
the
why.
power of pink prevailed. When you played
That's
as
true. When I played
Lavelle.
as my yes, I did want to revisit a previous topic because I did want to mention going back to the change where you had non-controllable party members and what we preferred. And so I'm definitely keeping an open mind because for me, I did prefer the Dragon Age version of being able to switch between other party members because like for me, I don't know if I would have had as much fun if I was just playing my character the whole time.
Okay.
I think that being able to jump around and actually being able to dabble in and controlling the other characters definitely kept things fresh for me.
Okay.
And I think that was one thing about Mass Effect that I didn't particularly like as much because I was like, it would be really cool if I was, playing as a Krogan,
Okay.
or playing as a Liara, from time to time. But like I said, I'm gonna keep an open mind and just see, how I like, the way that they're handling things in this one in Veilguard. So, yeah.
It's cool to see that that the difference of perspective, right? Considering, like, I think we game relatively similar. like we talk a lot.
Yeah.
We get immersed a lot in our characters and stories, and
Yeah.
but our kind of like our focus or our experience is determined by like a spectrum. No problem, Mike. Yeah, by a spectrum of perspectives, like coming into the experience, you know. Whereas, like, you jumping around maybe makes you, and I'm asking this, I guess, does it make you feel more immersed in the tale to see or experience the other perspectives in the gameplay as well, even though it's just combat, because you're not controlling them in dialogue unless there's some funky moment where you, right? But like, but being them in combat, does that give you a connection to the character itself in a greater way?
I do feel that way, and maybe it's even as simple as the fact that I can actually see them a lot clearer on my screen when I'm controlling them. It's so sort of like why I don't like first person perspective
Okay.
role RPGs. I like to be able to see my character physically. Um, and so in Fallout, for example, you can switch the view from, first person to third person.
Mm-hmm.
And I always do third person because I always prefer seeing my character because I don't know, there's just something
Makes sense.
because I guess the reason is when I role play a character in games, I'm not role playing as myself.
That's right.
So like having a first person vision makes me feel like I'm my character and I'm not. That's not how I'm playing it normally.
Yeah.
So by having me able to see my character, I prefer playing games as if I'm controlling my own movie or I'm controlling my own TV show, not I'm in the TV show or I'm in the movie doing everything. So that's just me personally.
Yeah. That's true. And there's a fascinating essay I read on that used BioShock. So it was a philosophy of BioShock, and it talked about how, I don't know if you played BioShock 1. Actually, I don't remember, but like
I haven't played any of the BioShock ones.
Okay, so at the very high level, and I don't want to really spoil something because as it being a horror game and first person, you're probably not going to like it, but it's kind of a cool experience to have because of the way the narrative plays out. But your first person and the philosophy behind this is that there's a projection of identity that goes into first person gameplay, which is like you said, right? Like you start to lose the wall of you are you and the character is the character, whereas with that you have that distinction. But when you're playing,
I can see that
Jack in BioShock, and I have to spoil part of it. Sorry if it's going to spoil.
Yeah, that's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
It's not the plot, but it's something that happens in the plot. And there's a point where you discover that the game is actually it's talking to Jack, but you're almost being played by the game, and the game is talking to you through Jack. And there's like this like blur of identities, and it's not like it's not saying that it's going to that level, but it makes you even more immersed in the game more than you should be because the philosophy of it being that when the game tells you to do something, you find that you kind of find out that everything you've done in the game is because of this particular phrase in the game that makes you do things. But it keeps you on the rails of the game, but the game is on rails. So the meta layer of all of this is really fascinating to think about from what first person means to a game on rails when the game itself is basically keeping you on the rails, right? And it's like you don't have control of your decisions and your choice, and so your willpower goes away. But that's because you're playing a game, not because the game is making you realize you have no will because they're using a phrase to you know what I mean? So I love the idea of that identity projection. And when we're talking about storytelling, right? And when we pull back from the characters, or in your case, where you switch the character, so you actually you decouple yourself from one identity to the next, you're able to project yourself into the narrative or the storytelling that you're telling with a group of characters. Whereas for me, it's like, no, this is well my story, but my character story.
I get that.
And these are secondary characters that are coming into Act 2. You know what I mean? Like I love to hear their story, but it has to be through me as a conduit, right? Because
Right, I know, and I 100% get that.
Yeah, that's cool,
and that's cool. I think that's neat. You and I have different.
I'm curious to see what you're gonna take away from this. I am
too.
That you kind of want even from a Mass Effect perspective that you couldn't play a Krogan once in a while. It's like I had never even considered that I wanted to play Garrus or Rex. I just love that they were my buddies on the field, and So whew, that's great. That's
yeah.
Yeah,
it just seems like, I don't know. Like I said, it just felt like, it'd be really fun if I could actually play as these characters temporarily, just to do something new, instead of just doing the whole time.
And be repetitious. I can see what
since the combat can definitely be repetitious, and also from a strategy standpoint too. I think it's easier for me to strategically. Be able to do what I want my party to do if I can just go in and directly micromanage, them as a whole, which is essentially why I really enjoyed and how I enjoyed playing not only Baldur's Gate 3, but also the Final Fantasy VII Remake games as well. I liked being able to not be Cloud the whole time and actually go and fight as Tifa and Barrett and Aerith and all those people. So...
No, that's interesting, and I'm wondering how the because the combat wheel felt like it felt heavy to me just because I saw a lot of empty
Yeah.
spots, right, when we called it up. But like I'm sure that gets trained as you go. I get very overwhelmed
Yeah.
with any wheels. When I see a wheel on a screen, I was like, I like. But I mean, what was the game we played? Like Refall was sort of. It felt like that sometimes to me. Where I'm like, what do I even do? Like, it just
Yeah.
yeah, it can get overwhelming. So I hope that it doesn't come across that way. Yeah.
The dialogue wheel, that was something that really stuck out to me in my mind because it reminded me of Dragon Age 2, where you had the kind of like it was more like the kind-hearted, the jokey, and then there was the pragmatic or something like that. Because I remember that's how you played your your hawk.
Hawk.
Yes, how you played your
Yes.
hawk in Dragon Age 2. You were more
Yeah.
sarcastic. And I remember and I noticed that it was like a mixture of that, and because I noticed in Inquisition you had a lot more going on, where you could be confused, you could be pragmatic, you could be emotional, and it's like a blending of the two. And to me, I
Yeah.
think that is really cool, but I want to see more of it. And I like the fact that, and this is something I heard you say in the reaction, Shay, is that the approval system is back, and I like that. Like I don't know, I think that's just like. I don't know, like what you were saying earlier about being connected to the characters, that connection and knowing that you've been able to, gain some approval. I don't know. It's a win for me. Hopefully I'm staying on topic, though I had to run around.
Very good.
Yeah. I've always had a love-hate relationship with the dialogue wheel because this is something that was not only introduced in Dragon Age 2 and continued in Inquisition, but it also was a mechanic that was in the Mass Effect, all of the Mass Effect games as well.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I still to this day can't help but feel like the dialogue wheel is a little bit limiting because, say how they did in Baldur's Gate 3, it felt like you had more dialogue options when you weren't just limited to what could fit in that wheel, so to speak. And so, I don't know. I just felt that in my Origins Grey Warden character, I had a lot more freedom to really define what his personality was like, because there can be like 3 different ways to say yes to something, but in a different tone. And I know that like in Dragon Age 2, like you can, there's different tones, but it's still different. I think so. It's something that I've gotten used to over the years, so I'm not like really, I'm being very picky about the battles I fight. So, it's fine. I kind of may be too old school and kind of prefer the way they did in Baldur's Gate 3 and in Dragon Age Origins. But
old school stuff.
How about you, Shay? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Shay, go ahead.
Yeah, only quick thing to add is like I might have a reverse. We're on different polarities tonight, Hark and I, but it's I feel like I love that about Mass Effect is that it had the more limited options. Now sometimes you'd make a choice and you're like, I didn't mean it that way. Like it wasn't that way in my head. When it came out, and then the reaction was like, no, I'm reloading. Like some of them are just like, no.
Yeah, that's the part I didn't like because you don't get the full context of what you're actually saying, and you pick something you didn't intend.
Yeah. So I can see where it can be frustrating in that if you're an RPer, right? If you're coming into it, you kind of want things to feel like your story because decisions you make lead to the reactions you expect. That can
right, not because you made a mistake in your dialogue choice.
No.
Yeah.
And that's basically what I was going to say. It's for me, I do like it, but sometimes I am kind of like, is this going to say what I hope it's meaning? Because it'll say, I don't know, for example, I'm trying to remember, it was a dialogue choice I was doing with Dorian, and it came out harsher than I was expecting it to come out. And I was like, oh, but the funny part was he actually approved of what I was saying, though it was harsher. Because in my playthrough of Romance of Vampire, because, hello, we all read Anne Rice. But but I so agree with that. But I noticed in this one, when you notice him choosing the options, it said we don't have time, or there's not enough time, and so he just kind of said, you said you had information on Varric, but what I really liked was how Nave responded. Oh, you don't waste time, and it seemed kind of, I don't know. It had like a nice flow to it. I think that's why I like it so much, because it feels more like a conversation versus I made this choice. This is their response. Kind of. Does that make sense? So,
yeah, and maybe this like takes us to another topic where the bridging
Sure.
here is that like the scene you just mentioned is that it was a dialogue option, like things did stop for us to make that decision, but as soon as you made that decision, it's like, man, it was just a scene. Like you weren't just two talking heads having this moment, and shit's going on around you, stuff's going on,
Right.
but
Yes.
like you kind of everything's frozen, right? But it's like in this one, it felt like you had an action, but then you were in a scene. Things were moving, things were playing out, they were fluid, So man, that's gonna be a huge shift, I think, for again that immersiveness of it's a dialogue wheel. We all know what it does. We all know we're making a choice that could have consequences. But if it flows, it's going to be harder for you to do a rollback. Like, how do you right? Like, it's like, I don't like how Doran said that. I don't like how Nave said that. Like, what are you going to do? The scene's happening. You know what I mean? So it might make you just accept the fact that a call was made, and I don't know, it just keeps you in the game more deeply.
And one thing I did notice leading up to this game, I was divulging as much information as I could on now the Veilguard. I was doing when they did behind the scenes of BioWare, and one thing that kept popping up, I even have the 25 years of BioWare book right here, where they really talk about your decisions in this game. And now that you're talking about that with the will system, like you said, you may not be able to, renege on that decision and try to pull out because it's been said, and so you have to live with those consequences. And one thing I appreciate about Baldur's Gate is that you could say, "Oh, I have this save file. I'm gonna go back real quick and I'm gonna get this better answer." But with this, I like that the consequences. Depending on like when you were choosing, hey, Varric, go talk to Solus, and we were all feeling like, oh my god, is Varric gonna die? Did we just condemn him to death?
Yes,
So I'm like, oh my god. So now thinking about that, even just saying, Knave, you stay back, Harding, you come with me. Did we condemn her? And that's something I noticed because I was watching I think her name was Catherine. She said you get to choose if a party member lives or dies, and I want everybody to live because I have a theory on why we're called the Veilguard. Like I went off the rails in my video, but theory on why I feel the way I do, especially now knowing this and the dialogue wheel, I think it's going to be even more critical or crucial now than ever when we make those dialogue choices. But were you going to say something, Hark?
I was going to move on to another topic.
Go for it.
I wanted to just talk about Rook. Let's talk about Rook, our player character, and the customization behind Rook. Because we were talking about this while we were watching the playthrough, and Rook can be the same races that you can choose from Inquisition: human, elf, dwarf, and Qunari. It makes me kind of curious now that Harding supposedly, according to the press release articles, Harding apparently has a little bit of magical ability, which makes sense if the fade is the fade is sort of like blending with the world, and suddenly dwarves can cast magic. So I'm curious if as a dwarf you can suddenly become mage-like. I don't know, but that would be really fascinating. And I think what's also interesting is that you can select what faction you belong to.
Yes. And
one of 6, which I think is impressive. I had the list of the 6 in front of me earlier. I don't have it in front of me right now. But I really hope that I'm not holding my breath that we're going to be able to have an origin story that we get to play through like we did in Dragon Age Origins. To this day, I still miss that, and I don't know why they've never brought it back, because that was one of my favorite things about Dragon Age Origins, which still to this day makes it unique from all other RPG games that I played in the past. So I don't know why they didn't bring it back, but... And again, maybe it's because they're just trying not to overcomplicate things a little bit too much narratively. But I'm definitely curious about how your background, your faction choices is going to impact the story moving along. The Inquisition is not one of the factions that you can choose, which is interesting. But so Harding is with the Inquisition, obviously, but the other 6 companions represent the 6 different factions
Yeah.
that you can be involved with. Let's go ahead.
No, it's funny that you say that because I learned in the character creator you can bring back your Inquisitor.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yes.
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 So based on my last playthrough of Inquisition, I played as Micah the Mage. Yes, I'm that person. I played as Micah the Mage, and me and Solus were friends. So
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out. And like you said, the
Right.
different factions, I'm very interested on playing as a Lord of Fortune that's a mage. Because I think that would be so fun, you know, going on pirate adventures, because I never got the chance to
Yes.
play with Isabella, because Isabella would have been my romance in Dragon Age 2, her and Fenris,
Yeah.
or Fin. So I don't know. Just the idea of it is just, and there's a story about it. And again, if you have not read this book, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But there's a story about it, and it's such a fascinating faction. And then when you see Tosh, who we have
Yes.
all affectionately called Harley Quinn,
I like that.
yeah,
I haven't
Harley
heard that
Quinn.
yet. I like
People,
that.
that's what they
That's
call
amazing.
her. And I want to know more about her because she's the one we know the least about. So when it comes to factions, I want to play in that direction. But what about you, Shay? Or me and Hart?
Antivan Crow. I don't even know how to. I don't know how it's going to be a
he's
choice.
just trying to fall on somebody's
I mean-
daggers. I ain't dealing with you no more. I'm just kidding. No.
Yeah. I just love Antiva. I love everything about it. I just it was so, the narrative even in Dragon Age Origins just felt like there was this seduction behind that entire faction. And because like there's a murder to it, but there's just it's almost like Orlais had it from like it was on the surface, you know what I mean? And that the kind of that romanticism around murder and espionage and all this stuff, right? Like politics.
The great game.
And even Crows are like, this is the underworld side of that, right? Almost the same dynamic, but from a whole different side. And so yeah, I just felt like that's gonna be a driver. I love the Grey Wardens as well, though. And I know that's kind of like, it almost feels like the boring option now, right? But it's like, but it's really not.
Yeah, no,
because like
no.
we were a Grey Warden in Dragon Age Origins, but in 2 that doesn't really, like, that sort of disappears. And then the Grey Warden in 3, it was a fake one. So it's like, we don't really, I mean, they were there, right? But the faction felt like it was breaking apart, and maybe you can bring some meaning back to the Grey Wardens.
The
I
Order.
feel like there might be a story there that could be interesting to play out. Yeah.
Because
I also think like with the factions, like I'd like. Oh, sorry, Micah.
No,
I like to see like the faction you choose having a bearing on that reputation system or that friend rivalry dynamic as well. Like maybe there's like 6 of them, but they're all like one is the enemy of another kind of thing. Like if they make some sort of matrix like that helps with some of that interaction come up, or like maybe you get special options if you have the two rivalry factions like with you at the same time, you know, and maybe there's like a clash, and do you get in the middle of that? Like there could be some fun dynamics they play with factions. Otherwise, why would you have them, right? Because like it's not just a label; it could just be a sigil on your cloak or something like that, right? Like I feel like, and to Hark's point, sorry, I'm going all over the place. Like,
no.
Like the point about the prologues, right? Because I'm with you, man. Like that's never happened in any other game, as far as I'm aware. And man, wouldn't it be great if like whatever faction you chose after this intro happens, you have like your story, and it does a flashback of how you got there.
Yes.
Oh,
but
I agree.
Just like,
yes, I agree.
Right?
And
even if it was like 30 minutes,
right?
Even if it was 30 minutes, that's fine.
You know what? I think that's what they're doing. From what I've been reading, I believe if you go either on the BioWare website, because I was watching another YouTuber, his name is Jackdaw. He's British.
I know Jackdaw.
Yeah.
I know Jackdaw.
So he was reading some of the articles, and I remember, and I went to it myself, but I had work, so I couldn't stay and read. But what I'm understanding is that your background is going to play into some of your characteristics. So we may get something kind of like Origins, and then there was this guy on.
I hope so.
What is his name? I think he's a Twitter guy, but he has that guy that not the magic word. I don't know who that guy's name is, but he's a huge Mass Effect nerd. Well, not
Okay.
annoyed, but but he even mentioned something about that. Like there's a little bit of that in there, and
Yeah.
I personally, I'm with you because I never got that because of Inquisition. You kind of get it when you pick
Yeah.
your race, but
Yeah.
not like
But
really. So if we get to explore that
yeah,
now, do you know how
that would
dynamic?
be
And then
great.
Shay, the rivalry
Dynamic.
system, like oh my god, it's like I won't have
Oh,
a life
Yeah.
anymore.
granularity, like let's get that back. Because again, what I've heard from Baldur's Gate 3, right, is that it literally is whatever you want. Like you decide
Yeah.
whatever you want, and the game is going to just pivot with you. And
Mhm.
that kind
Yeah.
of granularity, I don't think has existed in a game.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, they pulled it off. So ooh.
In terms of
Oh.
the faction that I would choose, as I said, like my knee jerk reaction originally was Mortalitasti because I just am so fascinated by that faction. However, ultimately, I think I'm going to go for the Veil Jumpers because that's the faction that I know the least about. I
Okay.
at least
Yeah.
have read
Okay.
a little bit about the other five, but the Veil Jumpers I think is purely new for this game. I don't think any of the novels have ever, or even comics have talked about the Veilguard, or not the Veilguard, the Veil Jumpers. So,
Mhm.
and I don't know, considering how our group is called the Veilguard, I feel like a Veil Jumper has a lot of ties to that. So
You made
that's
a comment
probably
in
the
your
I'm gonna go.
reaction of the trailer of it having a little bit of that Indiana
In,
Jones feel to it, and like
Nathan
Yeah.
Drake, yeah,
Yeah.
Nathan
Nathan
Drake.
Drake.
Hmm.
So is that like this might be getting ahead of our character. Like we're not in a character
Sure.
creator already, and we're already talking about this. But it's like,
Hey,
do you
why
have a
not?
character in mind to play out that kind of persona type, like that
I,
archetype, and
I
that's also driving your decision?
Yeah, I feel like every single time I play any RPG, I tend to gravitate toward mages because I just love magic. I am not a martial character. If I were to choose a more martial character, rogue is super fun, crazy, crazy fun. So I'm anticipating once again my first playthrough is going to be with another mage. I don't know what race this time. Because
Mm.
if it were up to me, I would love to play a dwarf mage, and not just because of the novelty about a dwarf being a mage, but in Dragon Age Origins, my warden was an elf.
Mhm.
In Dragon Age 2, I was a human because Hawk is a human. In
Yeah.
Dragon Age 3, I was a Qunari. So the
Oh, yeah.
only race in my
Yeah.
storyline
Yeah.
is that I have not played as a dwarf. I mean, there was my alternate characters in my
Yeah.
replays, but that doesn't they don't exist in my
In your
world.
world. Yeah.
So I would love to play a dwarf, but I also want to be a mage. But who knows? Maybe at the end, maybe like at the last minute, I'll be a dwarf rogue. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't figured
Right.
that out yet.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's
That'll be
Any options
interesting.
for you, Micah? Like, do you have anything in mind for what you'd like to explore? You've watched the other two games, and so you have some context on the world and the dynamics between the spirit, the fade, and the races. Do you have any that call out to you to
I
explore as a
do.
primary character?
I do. I was either thinking the Veil Jumpers would be interesting, and the reason why I thought it was interesting because I was associating them with the Inquisitors, the Executors, the upside down triangle with the two squiggly lines. That would be interesting. But again, as I said before, a mage Lord of Fortune. I don't know why that
Mm-hmm.
would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
You going on adventures, you just use
Yeah.
magic, shit happens, and you're just having fun. That's me. And I would say out of the races,
Yeah.
in Inquisition, I played as an elf and I named him June after the elven god. And then I
Mm-hmm.
played as a
Mm-hmm.
human mage. Both of them were mages. And I'm sorry, I just can't stay away from being a mage.
Yeah.
But I would say maybe I might try Canary or Elf
Yeah.
again. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, I
Mm-hmm.
like being a human, but something about those pointy ears just do it for
I
me.
know.
So,
Same. Same. I got a strong bias as well.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's hard to say no. Yeah.
Right? When
Yeah.
you see those ears, it's just like that
Since
one.
since we were talking briefly about the Inquisitor and how we
Mhm.
can create our Inquisitor in this game, just like we were able to create our Hawk in Inquisition, what do you expect their role is going to be in this game? Do you think they're going to be more or less involved than Hawk was in our previous game? I somehow doubt that they're going to like redo a hey, do you get to kill off your Inquisitor or do you get to kill off somebody else? Like I feel
Right?
like that's been done and they won't do it again, but
Yeah.
of course, who knows?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about bringing the Inquisitor back in this game?
I'm kind of hoping they play an advisory role,
Yeah.
like Varric.
I would like that.
Feeling that.
I think that would be
hope so,
dope
too.
as hell. Go for
How
it.
dope would it be is if you could romance your Inquisitor, assuming your Inquisitor wasn't already romancing someone else.
Yeah.
Or maybe they were, and then you could work something out. Were there 3 of you?
There's wiggle
I don't
room.
know. There's wiggle room. I don't know. Just I don't think it's gonna happen. But I was just
No.
I was like, that would be kind of interesting. I don't know. Go ahead,
You know
Shay.
what? It would be meta. It would be kind of meta, but
It would. I'm hoping that it's an upfront sort of deal.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how they do the Baldur's Gate 3 one. I know you designed a second character. I never got that far.
Mhm.
I've only got to the druid.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So, but maybe they took something away from that, and that inspired them to like jimmy them in somehow. But I feel like it's more like maybe if not advisor, it's just maybe some other word that I can't think of right now. But it's like they're there. They like how Heart comes in like, but it's more like at the tail end of an Act 2-ish kind of thing.
Yeah.
Big event, right? And you got to make a decision that makes that decision land either like often in or out. But it could be not necessarily that extreme, but in a scenario where you kind of cross paths, and because there's still a connection with the Inquisitor and Varric and Harding to some degree, right? But there could be a bridge there where maybe the fate is involved. Maybe like here's a line from the trailer that I think rung out to me, and I'm wondering why it was said, and maybe it's the Inquisitor I played because he was an Adrastian that worshipped fire, and so like I symbolically tied everything with fire to the faith, but the faith itself turned into a faith around the fate. Like I kind of went very again unconventional with the way that this went because I got my own theories about what the fate is.
Sure.
But maybe it's like a scenario where what was the line of the trailer is that maybe Varric says like we need a little bit of not light in the darkness, but he like it was a reversal. It's not like
we need a little bit of night in the daytime.
Yes, it was a reversal. It's like not to bring light to the darkness, but to bring darkness to the light. Maybe we need a little bit of darkness to the light. And I was like, what does that mean? Because like that must mean something. And whether it's just like we work in the shadows, we work under, like where the Inquisitor is more like on the surface, everyone's going to know what the Inquisition is at this point, right? And so they're on the surface running things. And so maybe your Inquisitor gets locked up in those, not the politics of it, but sort of like it's got to be the face. Like they got to be the face of those interactions with the other countries, and
that would be
maybe
awesome.
Unifying them against the Dreadwolf. But then the Veilguard is more like they go into this side of things, right? And they kind of become a bridge.
It's like the right hand and the left hand of the divine.
Yeah. They tie into the Inquisitor just to kind of hear what's going on that side, but then to get information to push them onto the shadow version of it. I don't know.
I would like that.
So,
I think clearly compared to Hawk, our Inquisitor has a very deep tie to this story because of Solus. Because they were, especially if you're, they could have been very close friends or romance. They could have been like, and so I feel like they kind of have to be more heavily involved with what the events of what's going on, unless Solus ends up not actually being the big bad. Like it could be that Solus ends up joining or something. I don't know. My suspicion is Solus. They're setting up Solus to be the main villain in this, but probably not, especially because they changed the name from Dreadwolf, the game to Veilguard, and got rid of the Dreadwolf. So maybe it's not all about Solus like we thought it could have been. So I don't know, just a thought.
No, you're actually right on the money because they actually say Solus is not the only ancient
antagonist
god you need to be worried about. And I don't know if you guys saw the opening when he opened the veiled. Solus actually looked surprised. His face was like, and you see the two gods standing there. And what sticks out in my mind is if you remember Kieran. Now, in my world, I don't have a Kieran. But Kieran says, why did your people choose to look like that? Remember, he says that if you talk to him, if you're an elf, he says, "Why do your people choose to live
Just to look
like that?" And then when the veil opens, you see these two, almost you could say, slightly grotesque looking Elvenuris, which I think might be Mythal and her husband. I can't remember his name. They were coming out of the veil, but he looked shocked, or they might have been the Forgotten Ones. You know, remember?
Yes,
if you
I remember the Forgotten Ones. Yeah.
I believe it was either it was Anjul or Junel. I forget how the elven names are. They're unique. If you read the book Horror of Harmac, there's a section in there where they talk about how the creatures look weird and strange, and it's kind of a horror story, but it's dealing with Grey Wardens, and it's really good. And
I think that was my favorite one. My favorite story.
Horror of Harmac was so good.
I remember that. I like that. I used that in my Dragon Age campaign. But yeah, go ahead.
Snaps to you. But I'm thinking that somehow that ties in with what's about to happen when the veil opens up. Kind of like going back to Solus, the Elven gods, and then going back into the Inquisitor. Yeah. Thinking about their role, like I said, I think the Inquisitor is going to play an advisory role, but in the way you're saying, they're the ones that are going to have to go and have all these meetings. Maybe we get Mayveris, Mayveris, Solus's friend. I want her in this game, maybe as a fellow advisory council member. So yeah, that's just me thinking. Oh, and to touch back on this, because Micah's weird. Hark, the Veil Jumpers were actually mentioned in the comic books called The Missing.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
Okay.
That's the one.
Yeah, and that's what we first meet.
That
on Discord.
Yeah, and that's what we see. My wife, Neve. I keep saying Neve, but you know who I'm talking about.
No.
So she was in there as well as the Veil Jumpers in that entire series.
Do you know if Balara was in there?
No, Balara. Okay. The only time we ever met her was during the behind the scenes of Dragon Age, where we see her actress, which is Ji Young Hun. Please forgive me if I'm saying her name incorrectly. Yeah. And
I'm assuming Ji Young Hun is the actor, at least, is of Asian descent.
Mm-hmm, she is,
because that excites me a lot, because as you know, most of the different regions of Thedas is based off of European, real life European countries. But I felt like I have read that there are other countries that we have yet to be mentioned that were based in Asian. That are based of real life Asian countries. So it would be really awesome if Balara was from one of those new, like, never before mentioned, or maybe if they were mentioned, it was like off to the side in like some random.
Be a bridge to a whole other side of the lore, man.
Right?
Could you imagine?
I would love some Asian representation in the Dragon Age lore for sure. Yes. So that would be cool for sure.
You brought that up. It's something I was thinking about today, because like it's funny you brought that up in the sense, funny and not funny at the same time, but it was one of these like that race has not been covered in the games.
No,
there has not been representation, and
not at all.
Like when we think of
I can't think of any
characters, right? Like they existed in the game, they existed as elves. You can make them elf, you can make them dwarf. You could there was never any limits around skin tone. But then today I was like, but I don't think like Balara stood out to me, because I was like, where did that? Outside of the elves, like in
she's the very first,
right? But you're like, but that's not the right context. Like you can't. That's not how it works, right? And you're like, why not? And it got me lore crafting a little bit, as I love to do, like before the game even releases. But then I was like, it made me think about what Thedas actually is, and maybe I might start a series that gets into this, because I'm getting really invested in Dragon Age again, and it's only been like 3 days. But it's the idea of Thedas being like a representation of what we have to do, like this, not this world, but like a world, like think Mass Effect, because in my world, in my headcanon, these two things are connected, and like there's a way to connect them, and I've mapped this out a little bit, not just that the games kind of talked about it, but there's something that happens in Mass Effect that makes Thedas work for me, in my headcanon, as part of that universe. And it's just a planet that happens to have something going on with it. And so why wouldn't it have all of the races that Mass Effect has, which is all of our races, right? There's so I feel like there's something going on there, and there's no reason not to. So I'm looking, I like if there's a gateway into another continent, man, that could open up so many opportunities. And part of what I felt when they changed the name from Dreadwolf to the Veilguard is that they might have if they get this right, they have an opportunity to have a new trilogy on their hands, and so they'll get the Dreadwolf, but maybe it's a setup, and then in part 3 of this, it'll be like we had like the whole the whole big event, the Avenger style event, Thanos event in Dragon Age Inquisition. Maybe we get that 3 games from now, and then that becomes something to do with the Dreadwolf or whatever that might be. Like you said, Hark, maybe it's not Solus, maybe there's something else, because the spirits spirits do what the spirits do, and the Veil cannot be they're all what's it called, unreliable narrators is the entire game. Like the entire world is unreliable from a narration standpoint, and so man, that'd be a great thing to tap into, that like gives this some breathing room, but don't take 10-15 years to come out with
do what you got to do, BioWare, but don't keep us waiting.
So
right. No,
I like it. I like it.
I do, and I really think that to kind of really tie back into the Fade and like the other enemies that are coming. Again, Solus is not the only one, so I'm thinking Solus may end up helping us, because remember he opened the Veil, and now he's going to probably realize his pride got the best of him, and he's like, okay, so I made a mistake. I'm hoping we get some of that. And the Inquisitor, go for it.
I never thought that Solus was an evil character. Especially the Solus that you got to know during Inquisition. I think that he definitely, the Dreadwolf was portrayed to be evil or like a monster, but then you start learning more about the truth of that elven history and realize there's another side to that story. So I personally feel like he's ultimately not going to be a bad guy, especially for the sake of the people who romanced him and may not be interested in having that romance go completely tragic where, he was a villain all along.
Right.
I mean, they could, but I don't know. I feel like they're not necessarily going to do that, but who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. Oh my God. True. Like, this game has me, like, I don't know. Like, I'm waiting on the next, like, bit of information, but I highly recommend. Wait, I think there's like more information like on the 14th or something, because we're also going to get Q&A, and then they're also going to let us see the character creator, kind of going back into that.
I like
the character creator. From what I was told by my friends who I guess they watched the thing, and I guess whoever they watch, the person talks about the character creator and says it's way more in depth, and you can actually do things you couldn't do before. One thing that really stuck out to me is that sometimes we create a character and there's a specific body type and you can't adjust it. But now they said there's body sliders, so like you can make like a beefcake elf, and like
get me some Wholesome. I want a Wholesome character.
Come on now, like shoot, don't make me make him. I'll do it.
I'm totally gonna make my replay will be a Wholesome character. That'll be amazing.
Daddy Olsen, let's go. But
nature intended.
Right? When that scene happened, I wasn't ready. I was mystified. I said, "Oh,
yeah."
Well.
Here's a question for you all. What major decision that you've made in any of the previous games are you hoping will have an impact on this game? Or are you curious what that impact could be in this game?
Jeez.
Well, I have two.
Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay,
here too.
One is Cole. I'm thinking about Cole because now the Fade is like unleashed.
I love Cole.
And the way I did Cole, I wanted him to stay a spirit. So I gave him the Amulet of Protection that Solus charmed, and will we have to face Cole again because of that? That's one of my decisions.
Yeah.
The other one is my divine is Vivienne. I made her my divine because I felt she was the best choice for divine.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong, I love Cassandra and I love Liliana. Yeah. But Liliana's church would have been running with blood, and Cassandra
if she was steeled.
Because
you could have two versions of Liliana.
Yeah, so that's the thing. And then Cassandra would have start reneging on things. It would have started off as, oh, we want to be more accepting, but you know that slowly that window starts to shrink. So that's why I didn't choose her. And to me, Vivienne, I know a lot of people don't like her, but she was actually going to be my first romance choice until I learned the horrible truth. She was non-romanceable. I was pissed. I wanted my chocolate romance, but
there you go.
You know, I'm still bitter about it. But in this case, I made her the divine because I liked her view on mages in general. They do need structure, but they also need a place where they can do it healthily. So I'm wondering, how will that affect my world state going forward? Because the rest of Thetis is now turned mages into an institution, and then the Dreadwolf does this. So it's like, oh my god. But that's just me. What are y'all? How are y'all feeling?
I mean, the biggest one for me, I think, just from a scope perspective, might be the Alistair decision in Origins, because I did not want him to be like, not that I didn't
not want him to be king,
but it just didn't make sense to my character to force him to do any of that. That was like I felt like as a Grey Warden, because like I took a very much an approach of like Grey Wardens exist for a reason, you know, and we survived that drinking from the goblet, so like let's give it our best, you know, and and I felt like Alistair belonged to that system, you know, and not to be tainted by what the world would have done to him. And I don't think he was like the best person for the job either. So now that there was no, like, I don't know, like who becomes the ruler if it's not him, and then what happens there? Do we learn about where Pharrell?
Well, Honora becomes queen if Alistair doesn't.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know. Because where's Alistair in all of this? Like, I don't know.
If he's still alive, because he could also be dead too.
Oh my God.
Especially with what happens in Inquisition, because he could die. Because my Alistair could have died instead. It was a choice between my Hawk or Alistair to die. And as someone who played Hawk was willing to give his life for Alistair. So, so I lost my Hawk that way.
I was so hurt. I was so butthurt, Hart. You have no idea.
I was too. Yeah.
Do you have a big moment, Hart, that stands out to you as like?
I think just from the game mechanics perspective, the major decisions I think from Inquisition was for sure who ends up being the divine. Yeah. Mine was Liliana. It wasn't by my choice. I think because I would have wanted. I don't think it was fully my choice. Maybe I could have chosen. I guess. It's because I did like Liliana over the other options at the time, but I would have preferred my Liliana to have not been stealed. I think my Liliana was stealed, and so things in the Chantry are running with blood with Liliana. So I'm curious to see how that goes with her. But the other major decision is who's ruling Orlais. Whether, because there's like 5 different outcomes. It could be Briala or Celine or what's his name? I forgot his name.
Her cousin, Duke Gaspard.
Duke Gaspard or Briala and Celine or Duke Gaspard and Celine or all 3 of them together. Like there's so many different combinations.
That's how mine was. Mine was all 3.
I wanted all 3, but I didn't get it. If it were up to me, I would have done either all 3 or Briala, but I got Celine, which is okay. I would have preferred Celine over Gaspard, but so curious to see how that shakes out. But now that we've mentioned, Vivienne and Liliana, I would love to see as many of the playable characters from Inquisition in this game. Like I want to. I presume that whoever your Inquisitor romanced is going to appear in some fashion. So I feel like I'm going to hopefully see Dorian because my Inquisitor, especially because we're in Tevinter. So maybe you'll see Dorian regardless.
Right.
But like Cole, I would love to see. Cassandra, regardless of whether she was the divine or not, I would love to see her, especially because of Varric, assuming Varric doesn't die. And I hope, because they've been utilizing this character a lot, and it feels like there's a payoff that has yet to be paid off. I hope they bring Sandal back. I think Sandal is this character that has not been utilized. I don't remember seeing Sandal. Was he in Inquisition? Maybe he was.
Yes,
He was, but it was a note.
Okay,
You
it
find
was-
a note where he's saying
Yes.
enchantment, enchantment, enchantment.
Yeah. After going through so many like theories behind Sandal, it feels like he's may play a larger role in this game, in the Veilguard. Maybe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, his last like the appearance, it was in the Descent DLC, I believe. Like he was down there, right? And it's like, and it's not just that you find him down there. It looked like he was down there often.
he was
like,
down there.
right? Because
Yeah.
there was like a setup there, like he had books there. I forget the exact scene, but
Yeah.
when it
Mhm.
happened, you're like, oh, like this is kind of crazy. And I could be I could be misremembering this. Like, well, there's two different things. Like that Harding has the magic sort of throws me off because
Yeah.
we had such an like maybe not everyone experienced this because not everyone played with with the dialogue depth, right? But Dagna
Yeah.
inside the armory, like you
Dagna.
find stuff about Dagna, like that character was set up for that moment.
She
Like, that
was.
should have been the dwarf that had magic. Like she was the oddball in that entire narrative, and I'm wondering,
Yes.
did I do that for a different reason? Like, is that going to turn into
That's a
something
good
else?
question.
You know?
That's
And
a
then-
good
That's a
question.
very good
That-
question.
That
Yeah.
Harding had the magic. I was trying to remember the Descent pieces there. I went through some videos real quick, and I believe she comes out of the Descent, so she was down. Am I thinking of a wrong scene? I saw there's like
There's
she comes
another
back or
lady.
something, or she meets the Inquisitor or something, and I feel like there might be a narrative there that because she was in that whole Titan area,
Maybe.
that's
Maybe.
what triggered it, you know. And so we'll get some narrative that takes us back to that older history, right? This is like the
Mhm.
roots of the world, the roots of like all of this, like it goes back down to the veins of the world, right? And I feel like maybe that might be their entryway, right? They didn't have magic, but what unlocks that? Well, maybe this becomes part of the
Maybe.
Veilguard's mission to kind of go to the older history, right? What Solus see, Mike, I think what you said, like through the veil. I didn't catch that. Like the veil, I know, like his emotions changed, so something happened. But
Yeah.
there could be something there where like that old history, right? The proto history, as I like to call it with Thetis, right? Proto Thetis. Maybe that's
Yeah.
going to come back. Like we get to uncover some of that
Yeah.
through the
Speaking
characters in these moments. Yeah.
Speaking of characters that returned, Alistair you can see throughout the 3 games. Morrigan you end up for sure seeing. Liliana obviously you see. It feels like it would be an awesome time to bring Zevron back if he's alive. I think it would be great.
appears
Wynn is
in
already
Inquisition.
passed. Yeah, Wynn's has already passed away, and the only other characters from the main origin story was Sten. And I mean, if you want to consider Shale, sure. But I feel like between Sten, Shale, and Zevron, I feel like Zevron could easily come back for this game, especially because of Lucanus and the Antivan Crows. So I would love to see Zevron, if they're not gonna, bring back Alistair or Leliana as much, or Morrigan, because we've seen them a few times already. So,
Right. No,
especially because of how popular Zevron was.
Yes. Yeah. But no, I think Morgan is definitely going to come back because remember,
She could have drunk. Yeah.
you remember she drunk from the well. Well, in my version, I let her drink from the well.
Right.
And remember,
And
my
Kieran,
version
possibly. Mhm.
Yeah, I don't have Kieran, but if you play, because I watch yours, he said she is the one who will bring in the new age. So maybe, you know what I mean? And that's also another decision I made that, will I regret
huge.
that? Because I let
huge.
Morgan drink of the well, you know?
I had her drink it. I heard her.
Oh my god.
My Inquisitor was like, "Nope, you can have this. You can have
And
it."
you thirsty? Enjoy, honey.
I've got this thing in my hand. I've got enough stuff to deal with. I've got enough
Yeah.
magical things to deal with. You
Right.
have fun.
Have fun, honey.
You have
Yeah,
fun,
and it's so
lady.
funny because she gets mad at you if you, because my elf Inquisitor, he drunk from the well, and she was like, she says
Yeah.
this line of, because you're like, I don't understand all these voices, and she's like, well, it would have helped if I did it because I know the knowledge, you know, and this is
Yeah.
like, oh,
Which, again, speaking of which, I'm pretty sure we're going to see Flemeth. I'm pretty sure.
yes,
I think so.
Because
I
I
would
mean,
love
we've
her to
seen her
come
in
back.
everything. We've seen her in all 3 of them. So
Would be what was in the Veil.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Even though we saw her die, so
Yeah,
to
I don't
speak,
know. I don't
you
know.
know,
I think that
We say
might
the
be.
same thing about Auntie Ethel.
true. Hello there, sweetness. I love
Yes.
her. When you
Yo,
meet her,
Paw Petal.
Shay, you will love her. That's all I have to
Okay.
say. But yeah, no, yeah, that's true. You know, she could come back. Another character I'm curious about because we're dealing with Grey Wardens is Ogren. Because in Awakening, I know you
Oh,
can.
Ogren!
Yeah, you can.
Yes!
So it's like, is he still around?
Yes.
And then also, what was the other ones?
And
The death ones, the death dwarves that would paint.
oh yeah, the Legion of the
Yeah.
Dead.
Yeah, the
Legion
Legion
of
of the
the
Dead.
Dead.
So will we see them again? Because we are going back to the deep
Mhm.
roads. They actually
Oh,
said,
good,
you
man.
know, it's not a Dragon Age game if you don't go to the deep roads,
Deep
and that's why I
roads.
think we might run
Mhm.
into Sandal as well. But you know, that's just
Ooh.
yeah,
Makes
That
sense.
would be interesting.
yeah.
Makes sense. There's like wait, did I get
Oh yeah,
Anders?
Anders.
Anders?
If
What was
your
his name?
Anders is alive,
Yeah.
Like that was a massive decision too, and it could
That was
end
a
with
huge
him
decision.
not making it. But what happens if he does
Yeah.
make it? And on that note, in the trailer we didn't hear no Templars mentioned, no Chantry mentioned, right? None of the characters are the factions. Those have to be factions for all intents and purposes, right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's something going on with that. Like that's evolved to some other thing now. Maybe it's
Mhm.
that Vivienne's taken over, or Liliana's in it. Like maybe some dynamic has messed up though you know.
Yeah, since we're gonna be in Menrathos, I definitely want to meet the Black Divine.
Black Divine.
And then the interesting thing is people in Minrathos don't call him the Black Divine.
No, they
he's just
don't.
he's just the Divine.
Right.
So I definitely think that the religious factions, whether it's the Chantry or like the Black Divine, are for sure going to play a role in some form, even though you're not affiliated with
Yeah.
that faction,
Yeah.
especially because they've got to do something with who ended up being the Divine at the end of Inquisition.
is
They've got to
true.
do something with that. So,
Ooh, another thing, since we're also talking about this, remember at the end of Inquisition where all the elves started leaving? Remember, and then also in the book, in Dread Will Take You, that's written, I believe, by Patrick Wheats, which is one of the best stories
Patrick
in here.
Weeks.
Yeah, he's amazing. You learn, and also in the Missing Com book, you learn that Solus has been freeing slaves. So I'm wondering, kind of thinking back about that, because I'm thinking about Inquisition and the world states. Will we see something like that ties into all those elves? Like, did he give them magic? You know, and kind of speaking on, you know, what we all kind of thought, like the rogue seemed like he was doing some magic with the static shock effect. So, well, that's what it's called, right? Static shock. I'm wondering, because I'm also thinking about Kieran again when he was like, "Oh, it'll make everybody the way they used to be, the way everyone was meant to be when the veil comes down." So it's like, does everyone have magic? Kind of going. It's my brain's thinking about,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Dagna potentially getting magnet. We know Harding gets magic. Our you know, that Rook seemed like he had some kind of magic. So I'm just curious about that. My brain is, I'm theory crafting right now. So if I sound crazy,
dude.
that's why.
That is a rabbit hole for sure, and
Yeah.
Yes.
it's one of these like I read one comment. It might have been on my reaction. I forget where I read, or Harks. I forget where it was, but someone says something like, "Was it like laziness to like allow everyone to have magic?" I'm like, you could. I mean, that could be an angle, but is it part of the lore that this could be? Like, yes, it's part of the lore that this could be where things were going to go, right?
Mhm.
But technically speaking, probably not wrong either. Like to say everyone can do magic, it's going to be way easier to program something
Yeah.
like that, or provide the options if you want to, right? You can turn it into a Hark campaign where you can do whatever you want,
Right?
Take it back to Hark's tabletop campaign. Like,
I am curious when they do show the character creator for the first time.
Yeah.
If you can actually create a mage dwarf for the very first time in this franchise, oh my gosh, people would be going crazy.
yeah.
People, by
Why
that.
wouldn't you? 'Cause you wanna,
Why wouldn't you?
you
Yeah.
want to hear what their opinions are. You want to hear the history, right? You're gonna want
Yeah.
that lore, right?
Especially if it ties into your origin. You know,
Yes.
it's just like, oh my
Yeah.
god, like,
I
I
feel
need
like
this
it.
game today.
I feel like because I was thinking about joining the Veil Jumpers, I feel like
Right.
if I did
Oh,
have a dwarf in the Veil Jumpers, because they probably are exposed to the Veil
Yeah.
constantly, maybe why
Maybe
wouldn't
that's how it
they start developing magic? I don't know. That's just
right.
Head canon, baby. You just do whatever you
Right.
want.
yeah.
Give the freedom
The
for
very
someone to come up with whatever that makes
one
sense
of the
to them, you know?
very first
Right.
apostate dwarves,
Right.
like
Right,
apostate.
for the first time in forever.
Yeah,
We're in
Oh
an
my
era,
goodness.
right, where like this game world, like when I say fanfic, it's like it really is a scenario
Mhm.
where, like, when you think about what Thetis is, and we think about the proto history of Thetis, and
hmm
this whole like returning them back to what they were, like,
Yeah.
man, maybe that means more than we all think it is, because we all experience things on the surface, but there's a massive subtext going on with the entire lore of Thetis that it is a massive rabbit hole if you want to go and make the connections between
yeah,
the Elven gods, or that pantheon, and then the pantheons also sort of merge up, and there's like the more you know about the spirits and how all the demons are formed, and these are ideas that become
Mhm.
yeah,
things. And I don't know, there could be a cataclysmic event, right, that um
Mhm.
turns those original forms into the four races we get, right, and they
Mhm.
mm,
evolved from something else. It's like
sure,
those might not be the original forms, right, they might have
sure,
morphed,
yeah,
Mm.
because they don't have the history, right? The further you go into Thetis, you always had a wall. Like, I forget where it was in Inquisition. I think it's, what was that land? The desert land, right? Where you're finding like things across all the land. It was very tedious, but the lore you
Mhm.
get out of that zone,
Oh,
for
it's
me, was like,
good.
man, there's some crazy lore. It's the first time you see
hmm
the third lyrium, right? Where it's like, that was that
Mhm.
ever explained? Like the green lyrium just jutting out of somewhere.
hmm
And then it was like the narrative about the Titans, and it's just like, when you
Yeah.
correlate that, like, potentially, like, so were they dwarfs? There's enough connections there in that spot where it's like it's ambiguous enough where you can imagine,
yeah,
like, the ambiguity of the lore itself is to allow us all to create our own
Mm.
stories, and even the history of Thetis becomes whatever we want it to be. That'd be a
Right.
yeah,
crazy thing to open up to community, right, to create their own kind of lore behind this. So, or connection point, theory crafting is fun, man.
Yeah.
So, like, imagine like how much community gets formed with just people like coming up with theories all over the place. People just want
Right.
to hear that stuff. It's fun stuff. Yeah.
It
What is
is.
your pie in the sky wish list items for this coming game? Even if you're not holding your breath, it'll actually happen. Like,
Right.
what are your feelings on that?
Ay,
Oh,
Dios mío.
sounds rough.
Um, I would say, Shay, you go first.
I don't think
I need to
I don't.
whittle it down.
Me too, man. Hark,
Whittle
are
it
you saying this
down.
because you already have something in mind, Hark? Because I'm almost having
Uh,
trouble with this one. I
Mhm.
think I already
uh,
got what I might have wanted, which was the Mass Effect combat style, like the more
Mm.
focused
mhm.
Mhm.
approach on the narrative and the primary protagonist. Like,
Yeah.
so that might be my
I've
dream.
already, yeah. I mean, I've touched a lot of them already. Like the the rivalry system.
Mhm.
I mentioned this with Hawk in Inquisition. Is I the way I would have preferred that Hawk worked in Inquisition was that you got to control the dialogue of both Hawk and your
Oh yeah, I
Inquisitor.
remember you saying that,
Like
and that's true.
even because just because
Yeah.
you're controlling the responses of both of them doesn't mean you're going to agree. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean and I thought that would have been a really interesting dynamic, so that I really felt like this hawk was mine, because I just felt the whole time I felt that my hawk was because I had lost control of my hawk at that point. It just felt
Mhm.
like he was responding in ways that I didn't think was in character, and a lot of people in my comments were telling me, well, you know, it makes sense because so much time has passed by and Hawk probably changed a lot during
He
that
got
time and
jaded.
got jaded.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I was still like, I don't know if I
that's
personally still don't
right.
buy that to this day. So I would have
Right.
I my pie in the sky desire is that they did implement it this way with your Inquisitor, where you can control the
Mm.
Inquisitor's dialogue choices as well.
Double
I don't
dynamic
I don't
conditions.
know
That'd be
how. Yeah,
crazy.
I don't know how more complicated that becomes in the like
Yeah.
the dialogue tree
Yeah, yeah.
now,
Right.
but that's another thing. And then this is just a small thing that popped into my head is I would love, because Hawk could die, in Inquisition, I would love to see Carver or Bethany if they were still alive. Just as another tie to Dragon Age 2, especially if Hawk is not around anymore. Especially because Carver and Bethany could become a warden, possibly. I don't know. Curious if there's anything that's Kirkwall related that will end up happening in the story too. I don't know.
Disappeared, right? Like, because 2 happens, and you're like, what happened to? In Inquisition, there's no real callbacks to a lot of the stuff. Not even the characters, right? Like, they just sort of
Varric's the only one really
that comes back really in Harding.
Comes back. Yeah, you don't hear. I would love to see Fenris. I'd love to see Isabella. Who is the blood mage?
Was it
Dalish? Meryl,
yeah.
Ooh, all of
could you imagine her?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
Great to bring back the Dragon Age 2 characters as a.
I think so.
Really neat callback. Yeah.
They were fun. I know that game gets like it's the easy one to pile up on, but it's like
you know
I don't know, man. It has its moments, and I understand. Like even hard. Like I think your comments were similar, right? It was dark. it was the banter itself. I think both of us have that opinion, right? I don't know what yours is, Micah, but like the banter was darker. Like it's like no one was friends, and it's like
no one was friends.
You're like
they hated each other.
You're surviving together. You're being hunted down. Like
there were moments where it's like I don't think we're a dysfunctional family. I think we're just dysfunctional. We're just a dysfunctional family.
All the time.
We're just at each other's throats, man. Especially Aveline and Isabella. I'm sorry. I was enjoying that cat fight. Like I needed that. But go ahead.
I like how they see, and this goes back to the rivalry system. I like, and trying not to spoil things for Shay, I like how they executed that between Shadowheart and Lae'zel. It was perfect. The development of those two characters' relationship from beginning to end was just chef's kiss. Yeah. And I felt that's what I would have wanted from Dragon Age 2, from the companions of Dragon Age 2. Anyway. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Micah.
No. I would say my pie in the sky wish. One, because my Inquisitor, the current one that I have right now, Micah, he romanced Iron Bull. Mm-hmm. And I would want to see him and the Chargers come back. Like, my Inquisitor, even though they're not, like, together, but my Inquisitor could be like, I have a guy, you know? And in comes Iron fucking Bull, you know? And I'm just like, yes, that's just me. What are you going to say, Hart?
I want to see Krem, number one. I actually was disappointed that Krem wasn't a playable character, because I would have romanced the snot out of Krem.
Now.
But the other surprising favorite side character from Inquisition was Sutherland. Sutherland and his crew, if you remember Sutherland.
Yes, he was so cute. He was inside. He was so excited every time he did something.
To be a hero. And I'm like, I kind of want to see Sutherland and his like party like just kick butt. Like all of a sudden.
Could you imagine?
After 10 years,
right?
After 10 years, I can see them both just being total bad A's. Like, I would love to see that.
That would be
the good thing with the whole passage of time thing is that they could touch on all those old characters, but they've all aged, right? And so they're obviously not going to run into them as these crazy adventurers anymore because they probably can't even do that anymor, right? Varric's already out there, and supposedly like his whole hair color thing is like it's going great because he's old, and that was in a comic.
He's still daddy.
Oh, but
still daddy.
But he's still out there. He's doing his thing, you know, and I don't know. So maybe like that's their way out to some degree, because even on in Dragon Age, like the elves don't live like they used to, you know. So they're all aging more or less. All the races are aging at the same pace, right? So
I am curious about the passage of time as you're playing through this story, because one thing I mentioned was the griffin that Davrin has.
Yeah,
I feel like maybe time passes by enough so the griffin actually becomes old enough to be a mount. To be a mount.
It's
I
funny
feel
that
like
you say that.
yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Go finish your thought. Finish your thought.
I feel like that would be a missed opportunity unless they're saving that for the next Dragon Age game.
Yeah.
You know, but go ahead. Micah.
No, because I said the exact same thing. I said the exact same thing. I hope that I think his name is Asaro, or something like that. It's basically the elven word for arrow. Is the baby griffin's name. I call him Lightwing. I'll fight you. It's
Okay.
Lightwing. Don't question me.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. No. But like, I want to know, will that be a mount as well? That was my biggest hope.
Yeah.
But if it's not, I'm wondering, will we find other griffins?
Right, to be
There might be a
mounts.
subplot
Yeah,
here for
like, can you be bound? Because if you did you read Last Flight? Did either of you read it?
I haven't read it yet.
It's on my list. I want to. It's
Okay,
on my
well, I
list.
won't spoil nothing for you. But it just, when I saw that and I read it, I really liked what it seemed like a perfect in-game mechanic. That's just the best way to put it. But yeah, but kind of going back to what you were saying, Hark, not to derail from the conversation too much, but no, the mount, I think that would be really fun to have a griffin mount. See, and this is even more of a reason to romance Davrin, you know? I mean, he's cute, but you're after the griffin.
Yeah. See, that's what I was saying. Like, Emmerich seems really cool and all, but I'm really after the skeleton, Manfred.
Right? Oh, and you guys should check the chat, because I saw this Twitter post and it is hilarious. Because someone likes Emmerich and it's just really funny. I just put it in there. You'll see it when you get a chance. It was perfect.
Do we know how old Emmerich actually is? Like, I don't know if is he actually
I think he's 50s.
He's aged up there. He's up there.
Okay.
That's how I understood it.
I'm curious.
Because I think I might be one of the only short stories I read in To Venture Night. Isn't he the guy in To Venture Nights? Isn't there something with like a tomb in there?
In it. Yes.
He's in there,
Is
but
that the story?
it's very small.
He's in there.
But he's younger
But he
there.
also has a short story. He has a short story by Sylvia called The Flame Eternal, but it's a really good story. I would recommend going onto the Dragon Age website, reading it for yourself. Yeah.
I see. So is he, because supposedly he's younger in those stories too, though? Like, he's got like, it's like a long time ago. So
that one
like
is
a decade or two onto that. It's like, he'd be up in the 40s, 50s, maybe.
I feel like I feel like I have to roll a slightly older character just in case.
That's the keep
old enough where you could romance Emmerich or any of the other characters, and it would be like it would still feel okay. Yeah, it would still feel okay. Yeah.
So interesting comment with the Griffin stuff is that the Last Flight, remember, for like years, I started playing the games in 2016 when I started the channel, but it was one of those, like, the recommendation was you could skip the Last Flight because it wasn't really part of the story you needed to follow in order to like get through the games and the continuity. And it's funny how it's like, well, just kidding, because now it's a massive plot point for one of the characters, and the companion characters of that companion, right? Like, this literally they have the whole, in movies they do it too, like the Guardians of the Galaxy did it with Groot, right? And it's like you can see them age as in the parts, like as they go up. So there's a plot there where maybe the rediscovery of the extinct Griffins is this thread that carries through. It's not a main thread, but it's a thread, and maybe by the third arc, right? Like the big mission, now we have mounts, right? All the Griffins are back.
Oh, that would
be like,
so
now
good.
That becomes a game mechanic that is actually integrated into the story. So that's fun. It's a fun concept. Yeah.
Oh my!
It's crazy. I forget what else. You said something. I was gonna. I forget what else. You mentioned the Griffins, and what else, Micah? What, you saying something about the Griffins? And
my God! Yeah.
No, it was on you, but now I've missed.
Oh my God! Yeah, there was the conversation is just flowing. One of the things I was like saying, like, for me, one of my pie in the sky ideas, like I said, was Iron Bull. The other one was the mounts. That's the other thing I wanted to kind of whittle down my thoughts a little bit. Will we get multiple mounts, or will we find more Griffins? And then the last thing that I wanted to see kind of explored a little was Gillenan, the Mother of the Hala, it's Gillenan, the Mother of the Hala. Again, the Horror of Harmach. Will we get to see some of that? Because in some of the concept art,
I feel like we should.
Right? Because
'Cause I
here's
feel
why.
yeah.
Oh, go for it. No, what are you gonna say?
Okay.
Well, we don't want to spoil anything for
Oh,
Yeah.
this is a short story. This was a part of.
It is a short story.
It is
in
a short
Winter
story,
Nights.
but
I'm
Yeah.
gonna read it, right? This week I'm gonna get to this damn book.
Yeah, no, I just, oh my god. The reason why I say that
Okay.
is because of the Thetis Calls trailer. Thetis Calls trailer, and
Yeah.
when we see I want to say Briala, but Bellara, when we see
Yeah.
Bellara is why I think that why it comes into my mind, and I'm very curious to see that line explored.
Yeah. I hope so, because they did leave that by far was my favorite story into Winter
Yeah.
Nights. And what I like is that they never fully explained anything.
Yeah.
It was, the mystery was still there, so I feel like
Yeah.
they've got to like address this in the next game.
I hope they do.
They have to.
Please, BioWare, don't leave us
Yeah.
twisted.
Because I, as I said, I utilized elements from that story directly, even like word for word, like description wise, in the like opening scenes of my Dragon Age Season 3 campaign. And because I just loved it so much, but I wasn't really sure, like, because I didn't fully have it explained in the story, I couldn't delve too much deeper into it since I didn't know everything. But yeah, I agree with you. Read some Winter Nights.
Yes.
Shay.
Yeah, I mean,
here.
just hearing this, just hearing that, it's funny because like I'm in the middle of a move that's just frozen in time, but it's like
okay.
I've saved some of my books, but
Do you have it?
this is one of the only ones. I'm not putting
You
this
have
in the
it.
box.
Oh, good.
So you got, so it could be like
Yeah.
this. Oh, here you go, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
It's because in my head I was like, I can, because I got over 5,000 books. Like there's
it's
a
okay.
room in my house that's like just a library kind of area, but it's
Also, you have an Athenaeum. Can I
You
get
do
a
have
card?
an Athenaeum.
But I
Yeah,
had to
need
be
it.
ready for a move, so all of it had to just go to storage, and just so I
Yeah.
can pick up and leave whenever, And this has to be all something that could fit into a trunk of my car or something. And this was one of them where I was like, no, I don't know when this game is launching, but I have to finish this book.
It should be easy for you because, as I said, it's just an anthology.
Yeah.
It's individual stories, so you could easily just read one story and then stop, and then read another story again and then stop. So,
Or you might be like me and read it in a couple of
or you could do that.
Focused on that video.
Don't be like Micah.
It's not in like 2 days. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and it feels like they're making all of it matter. Is I think the comment I was gonna make. That it's like things aren't just out there to be outside of the continuity. It's like, no, this game is going to bring it all together, and I hope in that context they're going to go, hey, these other games happened, and maybe some of the characters are dead, and they're going to get the whole Dragon Age keep thing is going to get updated so that they'll know what that means, right?
Yeah.
But man, it'd be nice if just like every character had an opportunity to be in the. I mean, maybe that's like it's too much, right? But we're not
Probably,
still part of the continuity is like if you're going to these different countries, it doesn't go too far to say that you go into a tavern and one of the characters is there, and it just gives you a little bit of that connection.
Yeah,
you don't have to talk to them. It doesn't have to be a plot. Doesn't have to be an adventure. But they exist there. They exist in the lived world that you helped craft.
Yes,
some of them might
I would
not
love
be.
that.
That
would be
maybe
really
what
cool.
The scene look like if Zevran's not there because he's a dumbass that his rivalry got him killed,
No,
so sort of like all the mini cameos in X-Men '97.
Yes,
in X-Men '97. If they just did it like X-Men '97, I'd be like,
that'd be beautiful.
If there's like a cinematic where something's happening worldwide, and they show cutscenes of, hey, look, it's Fenris. Hey, look, it's Sarah. It's like,
my God,
that would be awesome.
It's just another character in the background. Why couldn't you do it?
Right?
Yeah. Right.
Fingers
because
crossed.
if they're dead, they just don't have to appear in the cutscene.
Exactly. Exactly. Let's work on the game and game costs and all that stuff.
You don't have to hire the voice actor necessarily. Which again is what they did with X-Men '97. They didn't necessarily have to have voice actors. They just had to show up.
Appeared at a rave.
At a rave.
It was amazing. Oh my God! I wanted to go to that X-Men '97 party. I was like, Sweet Pea, we going to this party. She said, it doesn't exist. I don't care. We're going. One other thing, I wanna get your thoughts on this.
Yeah.
And this, I don't know. I had I have this weird feeling, and I could be horribly wrong, and I pray I'm wrong. But what is your overall, now that you've seen gameplay and you see that opening trailer, what is the overall feeling of story you think might be coming? We may be getting.
I'm gonna rewatch the trailer for sure because I missed some of like the exchanges and stuff because I was focusing on the other stuff I was trying to pay attention to, which was the gameplay. But
Yeah.
I mean, we got the surface level of what that kickoff is going to be. It does feel like a bridge from Inquisition and Trespasser, and they're at least going to give us something that acts as the handoff, and then from there maybe it turns into something else for 150 hours, you know,
Right.
and then loops back around. But at the high level, or at least this might be part of like this answer and the whole dream thing is like, I hope narratively they don't just tell us more stories of the surface world. Like we're gonna go to all these new countries, I'm sure, and so maybe we're gonna get a lot of that new lore that's gonna, and you know, we have the codexes for that, all that stuff, but now we get to live in it a little bit. But it'd be great if we also got, as the Veilguard, like let's get into the Veil and let's like really delve into that part of where this story could go. There's a surface world, and then there's the stuff that happens in between, you know, and it'd be great to know more about. I almost don't want this explicitly described to us, like how everything works. Like I don't. I feel like that ambiguity is part of the richness of this lore. That ideas can manifest into reality, like that's massive. And so, but they get a little bit to the source of that. The Titans got close to that, like the idea of the Titan. Like there was a concept that happened in Descent that was very kind of robust, but it's like, did everyone play the DLC? Probably not. And so there might be this big gap as to what all of this could be, right? It's yeah, so I hope that we get to explore the Fate a little bit more and how those beings come to be and how they manifest what they see as reality on beyond the veil. Like maybe we got a sense of it from spirits and demons and all this, and Cole, right, is a huge example of like literally manifesting as someone real, if that's where you take it. And I think that matters. These kinds of details matter. And again, this is a moment in the game that maybe not everyone even made that happen. Like, because you cannot have these conversations with characters and just ramp through it as a combat game. You're not going to have those dialogues with characters. They're not intrinsic to the game moving forward. They're not the main plots, right? And there are gamers out there that stick to main quests and get done with it, right? And so, yeah, it'd be nice to see that kind of play
out. I'm not anticipating that it'll be as dark of a dark fantasy as perhaps Origin was. I would love it to be, for the sake of the people who really like that aspect of this franchise. It definitely does feel more Inquisition in tone than it does Dragon Age Origins. I hope that it is not a direct like copy paste of Inquisition, because I do see similar beats in this intro that was slightly similar to the prologue of Inquisition a little bit. Which also involves Solus at the beginning, right? As well. But at the same time, and this is why, as a player, I feel like it's so hard to satisfy us, because we want one thing, but we also want the other thing that feels like they're diametrically opposed. I also want them to keep a lot of the stuff that did work in Inquisition. Like, I did love the fact that we had a Skyhold, like a home base would be awesome. I did love that. I liked how the romances worked in Inquisition. I don't want Inquisitor to essentially feel like the same way that Hawk worked, for example, in this game. So yeah, those are the things that I'm wishing for in the story. I do agree with Shay. I want to be able to dive deep in each of these 6 different factions for sure. Really get a fantastic taste of Minrathos, because that's just a region that we don't get to like to learn a lot in the previous games. Really, as much of the newer places. If we want to go to Ferelden, we want to go to Orlais, that's fine. But I definitely want to check out these other places. It's like been there, done that. Let's explore other places. And And yeah, I just hope that it doesn't feel like Andromeda in a way, because I did enjoy Andromeda, but I did feel like the storytelling in Drama was a little shallower overall
Yeah.
than than um than Dragon Age. And I think I mentioned this because I was rewatching my ending of Andromeda. I felt like some of the side quests were deeper in Andromeda than the main quest was.
That's
And so yeah, I kind of am hoping that doesn't happen here. One thing I hope, and I don't know how many people agree with this, but I didn't particularly care for the open worldness of Inquisition, because I felt like that kind of took away from the
Same.
deeper storytelling.
Yep.
And I wouldn't mind if they cut back on that a little bit, just to, focus on the story more than
100%.
just sink whatever, like 8 hours into Hinterlands or whatever the first. You know what I'm saying? 8 hours into Hinterlands, trying to do all of these side quests.
Oh my god.
And again, I don't know how popular of an opinion that is, but yeah,
It's pretty unanimous.
Right. Yeah. I think everybody. I'm gonna put it like this. I have a friend who I'm watching play Inquisition for the first time, and even she's like, "What is up with these Hinterlands?"
right.
So
I gotta finish everything.
Yeah,
I gotta finish everything in Hinterlands before I move on. And everyone's telling you, get out of the Hinterlands. Just come back later. Just come back later. It's okay.
Yeah, no. But let's not do that to ourselves. Okay. So for me, I don't know, because how do I put this? I never played the first 2 games.
Sure.
Big surprise.
Sure.
But I watched Hark's play of them, and I got a very good sense of the world, because Hark is a very good Let's Player. Just throwing that out there. So, but still, playing Inquisition and looking at this trailer and the narrative and everything that they're talking about, I kind of feel like, in this weird way, that the Veilguard is gonna be kind of like a suicide kind of squad. We kind of need y'all to be the Veilguard, while the Inquisitor kind of deals with Solus and this all this other political mumbo jumbo, and we just need y'all to kind of, use the Veil Jumper, get the detective to do some reading. We got a mage killer. Have at it and good luck, And I think that's kind of where it's gonna go a little bit, although I'm making it sound more lighter. But to me, what really sticks out in my mind is that damn song. Now, I know a lot of people say, it seems marvelly and it seems so cartoony. We can be heroes. But it's like, no, listen to what they're saying. We can be heroes just for one day. So imagine, if you will, that scene where you see everybody in your party fighting. They're fighting off hordes of Darkspawn, because now the gods that are in there want to blight the world, because they are awakened now and they're like, fuck everybody. So we're up against gods. We have to defy the gods. And so now we have to go inside the Veil to have this fight. And what if it turns out, your Rook is like, okay, this is a losing fight. We're not going to win. We need to shut this down. Solus, how much time do you need to close the Veil permanently? And then you have to choose, again, who do you want to come with you? Me or this person? And now here you are again, choosing who lives, who dies. And now the Veilguard will always be remembered as the final last stand of Thetis, as they all, or one key person dies. But what were you going to say?
You don't think the final choice of Veilguard is going to be leave the Veil shut, completely open the Veil, or synthesis?
Oh, you imagine?
Or synthesis.
Imagine the controversy.
If they do that,
red, green, or blue, baby.
Right?
Red, green, or blue.
I will show up at BioWare and say, who did this? Let me talk to you for a minute. Oh my god, but that's kind of the overall consensus of what I was getting, especially like with the strange handoff when Varric is like, oh, take care of the team, and we're all scared for Varric, and we see Bianca get broke, but the real surprise, the hit to the stomach is that we have to sacrifice, either ourselves or our entire group, or just imagine, Solus is like, there's not enough time, and you as Rook say, you know what? No, everybody go. I'll stay and fight, because there's a bit of concept art that I saw that sticks out in my head heavily, where you see it looks like an Antivan crow leaning on their sword, and they have their finger up, and they're like give me a minute, and there's a big dark spawn in front of them, and it just, I don't know, all these different things are playing in my head. It's like, is this are we gonna have a Suicide Squad? No pun intended, in this game. So I don't know. That's kind of the feeling I got from the trailer. But go for it.
Do we know if Rook is the first name or the last name of the character?
I think Rook was if I'm trying to remember, Mark Darrow had these red books with a Rook on it, and I think Rook is short for rookie. Because Ver gives you names, and it also could be short for Rook, as in the Rook can be sacrificed. If you play chess, you can sacrifice your Rook to save your queen. That kind of thing. Yeah, and then also Rook as a bird. So there's kind of like there's that as well.
Okay,
so it could go anywhere.
So you're saying it might not be their actual name, it's just the nickname that Varric gives you. The title, the Rook. That's interesting.
The Rook,
okay. So you could still give your character a full name.
Maybe.
That's not that.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I'd have to imagine. So, because I mean, all the other characters, they gave us last names, right? But that's again from a coding perspective. It's like
Hawk
it makes it easy for another character to call you Hawk, and then you still feel like you're being called Hawk. You know what I mean?
But Hawk was the last name.
Yeah.
But even like in Dragon Age Origins, each of the Origins starts with the last name, right? You can only pick the first name because it allows for the prologue to refer to the character by their last name, and still makes it feel like you.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, why don't they just get an AI? Yeah, I mean, this sounds really bad, and it dabbles in unethicalness. You can still pay the voice actor. Get the voice actor to do the vowel sounds, how they able to mimic your voice. Have them say the vowels, or say words that can be spliced together to say Hawk, or Hark, or Micah. Because it was done in what is this game? The one where you're the nuclear game, Fallout. Yeah, because the little robot says, "Oh, Micah." He actually called me by my name. So I mean, if they could do that with him,
that's neat.
I'm just saying, but still pay the actors for using those vowel sounds. But you use the AI to, program. But again, that goes into unethicalness, and it takes away job opportunities. But still, But
I mean, if it's the character's name, but they still recorded the rest of the dialogue.
That's all I'm saying. So it fits in, and you can give it the tone it needs. So if they're saying Hark or Hark, it can still have that implication with the dialogue. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like it will get there eventually. I feel
one day,
it's inevitable. We'll get there.
One day we can be heroes.
Right.
For one day.
Yeah. I go ahead.
That's a curious take. Part of me was like, do we go to the Veil, and like inside the Veil, like that'd be a crazy twist, but like all of these areas we go to, is there like a Mirrorverse scenario here? Like I think could play on, because again, it's all mimics, right? All these things are mimicry, and then plus Solus is doing that stuff at the beginning. It's like, could that create something where it's, man, you brought that music. That music screwed me out. Like you screwed me up with that.
Just
the
think
one day
about
comment,
it,
because you're like, could you imagine this thing is just a cycle of one day at a time? Like people die, and you kind of have to keep doing decisions to like hopefully get through this.
Who lives, who dies?
Like we don't know, because like the whole thing with the franchise is like decisions being made and they have consequences. But what if you have control of the consequences? Maybe is there another? Yeah, that's curious. Because why choose that song? It didn't fit, but the words are kind of like, they make
it makes you think, because I'm like, because even I was like, Elton John? Because at first I thought it was not Elton John, was it Bowie? It's David Bowie. I thought it was another song. I was like, we can be heroes, because it's a modern song that, but then there's also the David Bowie version back in the 80s. So when I heard it, I was trying to figure out, wait, why are they being heroes? And then I'm thinking about Veilguard, to guard the veil. And then you watch that scene, like if you really watch that scene, And then think about it. You're seeing, the girls are back to back. You got Lucanus with his purple wings out. Harding is doing her thing. And we see Rook kind of doing his thing. But we don't see the baby griffin. And if they kill that griffin, I'm coming for you, BioWare. I'm coming for you, okay? And then you see Emmerich running away from this giant dragon. And it's like, if that thing gets out, it's way bigger than any of the dragons that we've ever faced.
Sure.
And it's one of the, if it's one of the Elvenuris, or I even thought for a second, what if this is your son, the boy, Morgan's son, Kieran? You know what I'm saying? Like, what if this is Kieran? Or maybe if it is Kieran, he'd be like, oh, hey, Mama told me I needed to help you, and I'm here to flex. Right. That'd be dope as hell, but, that's just me.
That's actually a sequel shot. That's not your enemy. That's like that's a
right? If only. But yeah, no, that's why all of that it hit my head, especially with understanding, like, I've been following the BioWare news and I've been really listening to what they're saying, because one, they've been listening to us. So again, BioWare, if you see this, thank you. But also that they are kind of going back to that more darker, grittier, because that's what some of the people who've played it are saying. It's kind of going in that direction. So I'm like, oh my goodness, if it is this? Yeah. Is this how we're going to play this game? I build this character up only to sacrifice them on the altar? Like, I don't know. I'm not ready. Yeah,
that's what I did with my hawk.
Ugly cry.
I did that with my hawk.
I don't know. Oh, but no.
Now, when we say you pick two characters, like, because maybe it was a comment one of you did that made that throw me off. Like, is it you only get the two characters, or it's like Mass Effect where you swap them out? Like, you have break times, and then you can go, now I want you and you, and then you do that next scene, and then I want you and you, and you do that scene. Like Mass Effect style.
You do explicitly choose. You know that the decision is going to be a life or death decision. You're basically picking somebody to die. Because essentially, I think Hawk volunteers to sacrifice themselves, and you could intervene and convince them not to, and have the other person sacrifice, if I remember the situation correctly. And it's always... Go ahead.
Sorry, I mean in the gameplay itself, where you're playing your primary character with like two companions with you. Is that what you're answering, Hark, or are you talking about Inquisition decision? I'm saying like
the Inquisition decision.
Yeah, I'm saying in the gameplay itself where there's like two characters with you. It's not only those two characters for the entire game, right? This is
no. Oh. I'm sure you can swap party members around.
Yeah, you can switch out, but it's like instead of like having 3 like you did in Inquisition or in the other games, you're now limited to 2.
Had 2.
Yeah.
But it's going to be scene to scene though, because Mass Effect had this thing where it's like you could just swap them out in the middle of like some moment, like some cinematic fight moment. It's like if you chose Garrison Rex, you're going with Garrison Rex until that scene is over, and then you can go back and swap them out, right?
I think in Inquisition there were spots where you could swap. You couldn't just swap them in the middle of the nowhere.
Oh, it's right, because the little camps. When you find
the camps, when you find a camp, you can swap if you want. Yeah. So I'm presuming that's what's going to happen with this. I presume.
I don't know why. That's right.
Because I think with Mass Effect there wasn't like an open world. It was just, this is your mission and this is your party for that mission, and you can't change it. But I think with this one, I think it's different from Mass Effect in that this is a big giant world. Okay. You can keep your characters, your party, or you can swap them every time you get to a camp. That's my guess. Is how it's going to work.
It's not open world? Like, have you confirmed this? Like, it's not...
I have no idea. Okay. I have no idea if it's going to be...
What I'm understanding, it is kind of linear. There is room for exploration. Kind of like Baldur's Gate. You had room to explore, but there still was a...
Right. There still was a defined...
A zone. Yeah. So I think it's kind of... Right. It's like that, but a little bigger from what I'm understanding.
Right, because that's how Dragon Age Origins was. It was... And honestly, Dragon Age 2 is the same way, too.
I suppose, yeah.
Inquisition was the only one that was more...
Hinterlands. Too much hinterlands.
Yes.
I have PTSD from hinterlands, but nevertheless.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Go fetch them rams and all that other stuff. Lord have mercy.
Oh my.
Yeah, so just to close out, Shay and Micah, thank you so much for spending time like discussing this. I feel like because we've spent almost 3 hours.
I just looked at the time. That was insane.
Like 2.5 hours chatting about this. I think that kind of implies that we're excited about this game.
Yeah, just
with
a
everything
little
that
bit.
we've seen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, with everything that we've seen, I don't think our interest has been deflated.
Right.
Between the trailer and the gameplay.
Mhm.
And so I, of course, hope that what we saw in the gameplay is a very good representation of what the rest of the game is going to be like.
Mhm.
Because as Shay said, this is really important for the future of the company.
Yeah.
Like, they've had a lot of strikeouts in the past.
Yeah.
Between Anthem and Andromeda
Mhm.
and other projects. And there's a lot of news about writers that have left, people that have been with Dragon Age since the beginning who have left, and people are wondering, I don't know, like, what's the game going to be like? So I'm hoping that my cautious optimism is going to be rewarded. That's my hope. So, any other final thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you covered it well. It's let time play out. I actually thought that when that drop happened, we had a year before the game was going to come out, and then I got told it's like, no, this is fall. This is like
fall.
this
4
year.
months.
It's like, oh my god,
5
this is
months.
like, it's going to ramp up fast. I think they have a plan when they say summer of for the game, right? It's going to be Dragon Age for the summer, and they're going to have a plan because they have to. Like, I do really believe that they got to prove themselves, and not just to the audience, right? But for the corporation as well. Like, they gotta hold their own here and deliver something. I think I like you, cautious optimism, but I'm my glass is almost full, right? Like, I feel like they've had time to get like a lot of thinking done and a lot of execution, and otherwise they would have released it earlier. That's all I keep saying, right? If they wanted to rush it out like they did for Dragon Age 2, then they would. And but that was the start of everything going sideways, right? The rushing.
Mhm.
Stop rushing, and maybe you deliver something good, So
yeah, especially with the success of Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
I hope that
it's set the playing field again for. There's obviously a market for it. There's obviously an audience for this.
Right.
And these are spiritual sister, like, siblings here, right? Like, they have a history of being informed by each other.
Yeah.
Baton pass.
Yeah.
Micah, closing thoughts from your side?
Final thoughts. 1, I need to bust my ass with my channel real quick so I can get as much content ready. So by the time fall comes, I can be ready for this. Because oh my god, I'm not mentally, like, the date, knowing that it's February, because I'm thinking like you next year, but it's guys, it's coming this fall. If nothing else happens, it's coming this fall. So as they say, Veilguard is coming, okay? So yeah, so I'm excited. Go for it.
And if it doesn't, I'm in full support of it.
Same.
If it doesn't. If I feel like they need to delay it,
please.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Yes, a bravo.
Yes.
If that's what you think you should do.
I don't mind waiting a few more months. I'll be aight.
Yeah.
We've also gotten examples of why that goes south, right? Like, Cyberpunk was a catastrophe at launch, and No Man's Sky was another disappointment for me, which I wish, these are both games I still love both of them, but yeah, let's not do that again. Like, there's no real reason, right? Because the rewards at the end of just taking the time to launch it right is gonna multiply.
Baldur's Gate was in beta for how long? I think like
1,000 days,
3 years, or something like
that's awesome.
Yeah,
or something like that. Cool. Well, would love to invite you both again if you want to chat about this at some other point, especially as more content drops. So we definitely can talk about that offline.
Cool.
And I appreciate you both. This is a great discussion.
It was. Thank
you very much. Nice meeting you, of course, Micah. And
of course, because who else would I be? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a wrap.
I hope you enjoyed. Remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you always know when Hark is doing more just for you. And with that said, remember to live, think, and dream big, and choose love over fear.
Until next time, everybody,
Don't forget to explore, engage, and inspire, buddy.
love yourselves and love each other.
Peace.
Bye.